Okay, I'll start the live stream now so you can call us to order. Let you know as soon as that's going. Okay, we're live now.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting of the Port of Hood River Commission to order. Are there?
Sorry, that's annoying.
No, it's all right. There were no changes that I received from commissioners. Michael, is there any staff to the agenda?
President Shepherd, none from staff.
All right, then I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda, please. We did not have any public comment. I'm not skipping. There was no public comment. Christy or Mike, that would be you two.
Sorry, I will give a motion to accept the consent. Mike, you're on mute.
So fun.
I second that motion.
There we go. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair's aye as well. Consent agenda is passed. Just move right down to presentations. Michael, do you want to start with the bridge wire ropes?
Yeah, commissioners, you've heard from our lift span engineer, Paul Manlow, mechanical engineer at West Janney. He's with us tonight. The last time we met, we talked about the report, the inspection reports that they prepared, mechanical and electrical. And one of the key findings was the recommendation to replace the wire ropes. What you have in your packet is a proposal from Paul from West Janney that would engage West Janney in planning and preparing to replace those wire ropes. So it's the engineering tasks and schedule and cost estimate and other things that we need to move this project forward with an intention to see if we can get it done by the end of next year. So Paul's with us tonight. Mostly he may introduce his team, but mostly just a quick review of the scope of work and an opportunity for commissioners to ask questions. Paul?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think we're having trouble getting the other people on, and I'm not sure why. Bob thought he needed a password. I don't know if that's true or not, but regardless, I think we're okay. So anyway, our proposal was sent last Thursday, I believe, and it is, it's a proposal to do the necessary structural and mechanical engineering to replace the counterweight ropes at all four corners of the bridge. So the work includes a field survey to document the existing hangar. There is a hangar system there. However, we don't have drawings for it, including, we got some drawings earlier this week, and we don't see the drawings for that hangar system. So there is time there to document that system, do the analysis of the hangar system, and make sure that we're comfortable with that hangar system for hanging the wire ropes. Because as part of this work, really the only way to do it is to support the counterweight and then remove the existing ropes, clean the wire rope shivs, and then install and adjust the new wire ropes. And because of the way the wire ropes are laid out on this bridge, the adjustment is by shimming, which is a little more time consuming than another method that's used where they use turnbuckles or tensioning rods to adjust the tension in the ropes. But this bridge has shims, so we would use shims to adjust the ropes, get the ropes as close as possible in the shop, and then do final adjustments in the field. Back to the proposal again. So that's the field survey. We do the, plans detailing the counterweight, all the plans necessary to detail the jacking requirements, including sizing the jacks, the hydraulic configuration necessary to make sure that the counterweight is raised equally, calculations to determine how much lift we think we need to get the stretch out of the rope and make sure that the new ropes will go into place without any issues. Plans for the reeving diagrams, and that's the arrangement of how the ropes are physically put onto the bridge and in what order they're put onto the bridge. We would also provide technical specifications for all of the work, instructing the contractor, with specifications for the wire ropes, for wire rope brake tests, inspection of the wire ropes, and then the installation of the wire ropes. Provide cost estimates for all of the required work. And we have time in there to assist the port with scheduling and potential concerns, I'll say, with regard to road closure requirements and, how you might want to do the project. Also virtual meetings with the port, and then attendance at pre-bid meeting to answer questions and concerns from questions from the contractor, not necessarily concerns, but questions from the contractor. Specifically, it does not include development of an alternate hangar system in the event that we find that the existing hangar system isn't sufficient or adequate. We don't have time in there for details for a new rope gatherer. We're assuming we can use the existing rope gatherer, and the proposal does not include construction support services.
This is Mike. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
It looks like to me the estimate that you gave us here is just the design only costs. It does not include physically changing out the cable, does not include physically the cable itself.
So that's right. This is an engineering cost estimate to do the engineering necessary to replace the ropes.
Okay, I was under the impression during our last meeting, and it's probably just me, that we were going to get a plan this time that included such things as lead times on that cable. And I thought we were actually going to get a cost estimate of what we think it's going to cost to replace this cable, and a little schedule to get it done.
We haven't progressed that far. I mean, we can't estimate the work until we do some additional field verification of what's out there in terms of the structural work. The lead time, we're supposed to have a number for that, and I don't know why Bob has not been able to come into the meeting, but maybe I can get him separately on the phone. Let me see if I can do that. Maybe I can patch him in. Bear with me a second here.
Paul, just so you know, I just resent everybody the Zoom link, so it should be at the top of your inbox.
Okay, yeah, let me tell Bob that that's the case. Just bear with me a second. Did you send that to Brian as well?
Hey, Paul, I'm here. I was double muted too.
Oh, okay. You didn't have any trouble getting in?
No, sir. I just clicked the link.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Bob said I think he was asking for a password or something. So I just sent an email to Bob. So let me see if that. So Bob was going to contact the wire rope manufacturer and find out about lead time for the ropes. But, that's probably in the 3 to 4 month range for wire ropes like that.
Here's Bob.
Hey, Bob. Is he in now?
Yep, he's just muted.
Hey, Bob, can you?
Welcome to the meeting.
I'm on now.
Yep, that's much better.
Good evening.
So did you get a number for lead time on the wire ropes?
I did reach out to both providers. They got back to me with a few questions, but they haven't gotten back to me with any firm response on either the lead time or budgetary costs yet. So we're still waiting on that.
Okay. What I was hoping, so this quote or this evaluation that you've done is engineering only. So what we're going to have to add to that is getting some kind of a spec and a bid package together to go out for construction bid?
No,
Or
no,
is
no,
that-
no, this is all the engineering. This is the plans. This is everything you need to put this out to bid. So there'll be drawings. I think Brian were you thinking about 3 drawings, Brian?
Yeah, that sounds about correct.
Yeah, we will probably have 3 mechanical drawings, and then we will have a spec package, and we will have cost estimates. So we will have documents, I'll say, with the exception of, some of maybe the commission's boilerplate type stuff. But in terms of the technical documents necessary to bid the work, this is the cost to produce those documents.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So it's more than just technical. You would actually have a bid document ready or an RFQ ready to go out onto the street? I'm trying to make sure that we all understand what you're providing.
Yeah, we would provide the technical portion of that RFQ.
Okay, so Michael, you would have to provide the surrounding document to go out for bid. Is that correct, Michael?
That's correct. That's what we typically do. We put the front end specs on top of the engineer's
Okay.
specs and plans.
Okay. Okay, one last question, I'll get off. Do you have a schedule that, assuming we say go, when would you have all of this done?
We said 10 weeks.
Okay.
And we think that's certainly doable. And there's definitely some, we need to have some meetings with the port just to discuss, how you might want to go about doing this.
There was some conversation in the last meeting, and I remember some of what Commissioner Fox was mentioning about the potential of purchasing the cables ahead of time as a cost, if it is a cost saving measure. And I think I was curious what those costs were as well, because I know most of my manufacturers are not holding prices of steel for too long right now. So I'm wondering, A, if we're gonna get that soon, that would be nice. And B, how long are they gonna hold that price for? So it would be nice to see that fairly soon.
Okay, I think we can get that pretty quickly. You think within a couple of weeks, Bob, we should be able to get a pretty good cost on those ropes?
I would think sooner than that. The providers have usually been pretty good at getting back, I'll say within a week, on the cost. And when that comes back, they will have terms and conditions and what the price will hold for. Now, one thing I should mention is I did not have a firm length on the ropes. So in terms of scoping this, the main item I asked them to clarify is what the lead time would be, but I had put the length in as just a budgetary length to get a uniform quote between the 2 manufacturers I reached out to. But we are going to have to tie down the overall length to be able for them to give you a hard quote on what the cost will be.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Got one more. I'd like to see, as soon as we can, a little mini schedule that says, okay, here's the 10 weeks for design. We've got some time in there for a procurement. We have a guesstimate through the estimate of what the construction phase is going to take as far as duration. I'd like to know, what kind of a project we're looking at here. And does any of this construction have to take place at certain points through the winter, as an example? Is there certain times that we can't do this work? I'd like to just get an overall understanding of where we're going with this thing. And in my mind, I'd like to know, are we talking, finishing this thing up in February, March, whatever it is, and expedite as soon as we can to replace that cable?
Right, and I think a lot of that depends on conversations we have with the port. Obviously, we're dependent on schedule, lead time for some of the items. Obviously the 10-week time that we need, the time that you need to put it out on the street, the time for the contractors to come back with bids, and then, what time frames work best for you. And then logistically, we touched on this a little bit during the last meeting, but how this would be done. And this is something perhaps you want to start thinking about, but probably the simplest way to do this is to do it with roadway closures, and then put the ropes on the bridge, and then use an air tugger or a similar winch type system to bring the ropes from the roadway up over the shivs and onto the counterweight, thereby eliminating the need for instance, a large waterborne crane.
Right.
But that obviously means that the roadway is going to be shut down for a period of time to do some of this work. So those are the things that we need to, I guess, get with the port and have some conversations about when might be best to do that. Is that even acceptable, for instance? If that's not acceptable, then that's something that needs to be in the special provisions, that no roadway closures, for instance, are allowed, or 4-hour roadway closures are allowed. Those sort of things need to be in the special provisions so that you get accurate bids. You can't, for instance, put out a spec and then tell the guy he thinks can close the roadway, and then you tell him he's got to use a waterborne crane, and the cost is substantially higher. So those things we can go over with the port. Once we get notice to proceed, we can start doing that pretty quickly. I think we can get you a cost estimate and lead time for the wire ropes prior to getting notice to proceed.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if I could just say, Commissioners, the intent then is to develop an amendment to the existing contract with Wisjani and come back at your next meeting on the 24th for commission and review and approval.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's move to heavy truck speeding mitigation on that bridge. Michael, can you take that one?
Well, I'm gonna defer to Commissioner Fox. This was a piece that Commissioner Fox put together, and I think it's some really good ideas and needs some discussion and with the commission tonight.
Push that unmute button there again, Commissioner.
How's that?
There you go.
That's better. Okay. In fact, let's share this. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. Can you all see that?
No.
All right. Hold on. Well, okay, I'm back. I'm gonna give up trying to put that on. Maybe Geneva, you could bring up that one page. Anyway, what I did over the past, several months, I've been listening and reading, and what I saw is that we've got a challenge with us, that especially heavy trucks seem to be going across the bridge at excessive speed, at least over the posted speed limit. And the little bit that I know about engineering, excessive speed by heavy trucks is pretty destructive on the bridge. So it seems to me we need to try and slow these trucks down. So I came up with this idea that if you agree, maybe we can get Michael to do some more research into it and see what it would cost us. But basically what I'm saying is that let's put some speed cameras on the bridge, and we take pictures of the folks that are going in excess of the speed limit and come up with a way of warning them first offense. But after that, maybe the second offense, we target $100, and third and excessive is $1,000. But I think to be fair to these folks, we ought to reach out and talk to their fleet owners to give them a heads up that we're thinking about doing this. And it's not because, you know, we're trying to collect a bunch of money. We're actually trying to protect the bridge and prolong its use. So came up with this idea, thought I'd float it in front of everybody. If we agree, then I think the next step is to get Michael and his staff to put some more meat on the bone and come back to us with what is it going to cost and how long would it take to get in place? And I'm thinking something in the neighborhood of 90 days. So it's not next year, it's imminent. And I would appreciate Paul or others that are on the table, give us your opinion whether excessive speed on heavy equipment does in fact beat up our bridge.
Yeah, Brian, you have some thoughts on that?
Sure. So as the commissioner noted, heavy vehicles at excessive speeds will create larger impact loads on pieces or components of the bridge that are susceptible to those loads directly, right? So bridge joints and things of that nature. The overall span of a bridge and say its substructure and so on are not so susceptible to those impact loads because they're one step removed, but connections to floor beams and other components, as I said, just like the joints, are susceptible to those. And I don't know, I'm not aware of exactly what your current issues are or where your low rating is coming from that's causing the posting. So I can't really comment on that. But there's definitely some substance there.
Other items?
Yeah.
Other comments?
So we've looked at trying to do this before. The issue has to do with one, trying to get power and some sort of capability of data along the bridge. It's not undoable, but it won't be a 90-day project. The issue is we currently have cameras and the more security type cameras, but even they are at the lift span and they already have that motion dampening capability. Even with that motion dampening capability, it still vibrates quite a bit. So if I understand what you're trying to, the objective is, hey, I can put a speed indicator. The next piece would be to identify the vehicle. And then from the identification of that vehicle, then we can send information to its owner. So the issue, if you want to make it, not so labor intensive, that would mean I would need to have some sort of license plate type of recognition system out there along the bridge.
Yeah, Fred, this technology exists. We can go over to the UK and they've got speed cameras on every corner, and they have recognition of the license plates, and 30 days later you've got a nice bill in your mailbox. And I'm not saying that I would think we want something as cheap as we can get it, but it's an effective tool. And all I'm asking for is maybe the port take this on as a task and see what's out there and give us back options of how can we increase the awareness of the public and especially the heavy truck drivers to slow things down. I was on the bridge several times last week, and I noticed that especially if there was not traffic in front of a heavy truck, they were almost always going in excess of the posted speed limit. The only thing that was slowing them down is if there was traffic in front of them. The other thing I noticed is that actually there was a concrete drum truck on the bridge with the drum rolling. Now, I don't know if he was full. I don't know what the weight was, but I was kind of surprised to see him on the bridge. But again, going back to the ask, I think this is probably worthwhile to spend a few calories on what could we do to increase the awareness of speed on the bridge.
Well, why don't we recommend first, and I think you alluded to it in your memo, the majority of, I think a good amount of trucks on that bridge and truck traffic on that bridge are from a small number of companies in the region that need to use it every day. And I think it's a good idea to start with reaching out to them, not in a threatening way, but in just a, hey, we're looking into this. Please talk with your employees. We'd appreciate it, and try and get, their cooperation on the front end. And then the port can look into it at the same time, be looking into, I don't need an answer from Fred tonight, but be looking into what would cost of something like this be if it continues to be a problem. And I know we have a tolling authority there. I don't know if we have authority to enforce speed. I really don't. But find all these things out for us. Let us know. But that shouldn't slow us down from reaching out to all the companies that we can think of in the region, if that's acceptable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think-
a good approach, Commissioner Shepherd. The issue has always been, truck traffic amounts to about 6% of our total traffic, so it's not a lot. So that's always been the issue. How do, we're not going to break even if we try to put any kind of hardware or software out there, but we can go and, have a discussion with these, half dozen trucking companies that use the bridge most often. Yeah.
Well, I think that to agree with everyone, I think most companies probably have no idea. When Commissioner Fox told me that excessive speed does more damage to the bridge, I was like, it seems like the faster the truck can get off the bridge, the better. And in hearing that it's exactly the opposite, I think that if we just informed companies and said, hey, this is really taxing our bridge, and if we get another load reduction, it's going to specifically impact your industry, I think that they would probably all try and be very responsible.
Okay, then let's move forward that way. And I don't know that, that seems pretty straightforward. I don't know that we need to review a letter like that. We'd just like to hear back on the rest of it when we have time to put that together. Okay. Michael, I think the next one is something you want to talk about. Executive Director and review.
Yeah, this is my annual journey to prepare and propose a work plan. And this is my work plan, but as I always try to reiterate, is that really represents priorities of the commission, priorities of the board, and I'm not the only one doing any of these, it's everybody. So this year, what I tried to do, and with Genevieve's help, is to align this work plan with the strategic business plan that the board has adopted. So there are 6 categories here. They're all identified with the blue shading. And the sort of goals that are listed in the blue shading are all consistent with the strategic business plan. And under each of these 6 headings, you see various actions or goals. I'd like to think these are SMART goals. Some of them may not meet the full definition of a SMART goal, but I've tried to be specific about it, what each one is, with a deadline or a completion target date that's identified. I have incorporated comments not only that were reflective of the budget committee and of the commission's discussion and adoption of the budget, but also recent comments from my recent annual review. And also thanks to Commissioner Fox, who gave me some specific proactive input. So those are three of the areas that four, including the strategic plan, that are incorporated here. So this is a draft. The intent is to get it in front of you. You've had it in your packet. I'm interested in any comments now or in email, or give me a call, or let's get together and talk more about them, with the intent of coming back at the next meeting for approval. Once approved, then this becomes the roadmap for my primary work plan for this coming fiscal year, or the one we're in actually, which is coincidentally coincides with my annual review year. So I can go through this in detail, but I think it's there for you to read and to give me any feedback in any way. I do hope that I can get back and run this with comments and changes before it's finalized, get back and run it by the Personnel Committee for their review and approval first.
And if that's something that commissioners, if they have any comments, get them back to Michael, to myself, or to Christy within the next week, that would be very helpful, or before the next week's over.
I've got one comment. I've read through this, and I think this is it's a good, what I call a work plan. I think there's something different for your personal professional goals. And I would urge you to take a look at the document I sent to you. And I think, Ben, you've got one too. And I would think, Ben, you ought to share that with the other commissioners. So they have two examples of a professional type personnel goal system. This that I see that Michael put together is an excellent document for a work plan for his team of what he wants to get accomplished for the year. I think you need to take elements out of this and other elements that we as the commissioners want Michael to really focus on for this next coming year, for him to professionally grow and meet all the requirements that, you know, we want to put on him. So I would urge you, Commissioner Shepherd, to share that other document with the other commissioners when they're looking at this. It's not to say that what I put down there is absolutely correct. It's a set of ideas that I think we need to kick around. And then if you like them, we finalize it, meet with Michael, and I think it's two different documents. And trying to use this document as Michael's performance goals, I think we're going to get into the similar condition as where we were last year, my opinion.
And I'm happy to send it out anytime. And then what I'll probably do is, or have it sent out. I don't know if I can email everybody all at once, but I'll send it out and then ask for comments that would come back, and then run it through the Personnel Committee. I think is the appropriate way to do that for recommendations back to the commission. So, yeah, and then, you know, the sooner we can get this done. I mean, this is a little bit time sensitive, so we'll get moving on it right away.
Excuse me, Michael, is there a need for us to stay on? Do you have other questions for us?
No, Paul, I don't. When we get to the weight limit reduction, the live load testing, the HDR, I think there may be some questions about non-destructive testing that have come up. So I guess before you leave, if any commissioner has a question about NDT and its suitability for this next potential phase of work with the live load testing, probably now's the time to ask the.
Yeah, so this is Michael. I'm the one who made a fuss about the non-destructive testing. I'm okay with the way that you're proposing it, that you're going to have equipment right there with you, that as you do your inspections, if you see a crack, you can use that. We talk about it, but go ahead and perform some NDT on that particular joint that you see visually looks to be suspicious. So as long as you do that, I'm satisfied.
Okay. Any specific questions for Paul or his team? All right, Paul, thank you for weighing in from Philadelphia, wherever you are.
Sure, close enough. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Michael, did you have anything else on that?
I did not.
Okay. You can just segue directly into your executive director's report if you'd like to.
Yeah, let me just highlight a few things. Attached to my report is what we think is the final committee assignments that the commission approved. Just make sure each commissioner is looking at that and make sure the names are right and that we have everything in the right places. Related to COVID, I'm sorry we're back on Zoom, but it's out of precaution for the increase in cases with the Delta variant. So like everyone else, we're trying to figure out how long this will last, but we're trying to be as safe as possible. Governor Brown will be announcing tomorrow that there'll be indoor mask requirements. So we've already implemented that for our staff generally. And then I believe I sent an email out to the commission letting you know that on Sunday morning, we found that one of our facility staff was diagnosed, I guess, with a positive case of the Delta variant. So we, yesterday and today, we've effectively had minimal facility staff. The restrooms have been closed, and every one of our facility staff members has been asked to get tested. And as of this afternoon, John, you can check me here, but I think all but one have been tested and come back, and they've been negative.
That's correct, Michael.
Okay. And we've also, there's been a pop-up testing site up at Wise Middle School, and we've encouraged everybody at any portion of the port, if they're interested or anxious or would like to know, they can take time off to go get tested. So the impacts at first seem that they might be extensive, but as of now, it looks like we'll have almost our full crew back, at least by Friday, but we'll have most people back tomorrow. So the restrooms will be open on the waterfront. It will be closer to normal staffing and normal workload. But I will say that we've lost one of our summer employees who's headed back to college, and of course, there's one employee who's diagnosed positive, so he'll be out. And we were understaffed with summer employees already. So staffing, and especially during this end of summer season on the waterfront, is going to be difficult. I guess I'll just pause there. Is there any questions from any commissioner, or have I missed anything? Anyone?
I had one question, just for clarification, because you guys did a really admirable job in encouraging the majority of the staff to be vaccinated. The whole facilities crew was vaccinated. Was that correct? Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope that whoever has COVID, that their minimal symptoms, feeling good, they're okay.
Asymptomatic, luckily.
Perfect.
Okay, so just a few other things. I just want to give a big thanks out to Genevieve and to Terry Moore and the team that worked on the strategic business plan. That's complete now. You should be seeing on the 24th the full published version of it. But Genevieve did an enormous amount of work on this, and I want to thank her. Really good summary here from Miles Pengelly from Thorn Run about the recent Oregon legislative session. We had great success there, and I think we have a really high functioning team, and I've been very pleased with Thorn Run over the last few years since we retained them. There's a spreadsheet in here that indicates, that Daryl put together, that indicates the high level of activity on the waterfront as demonstrated by the increase in event site revenues. We've seen a lot of activity and a lot of enforcement activity related to the parking functions. So I think it's fair to say that our numbers will be quite a bit higher this year, especially compared to 2020. I want to just point out one specific project that's coming, and Genevieve, if you could pull up diagram. There we go. So this is the Maritime Building. You're looking north, so the water is just across from the red line at the top, the Columbia River. And on the easterly portion of it, you'll see a strip that's highlighted in two sort of magenta lines. That is a portion of port-owned property, but it's also, interestingly enough, it's zoned open space. It's a separate tax lot. So immediately to the east of that is Waterfront Park. That strip of property is where the phase 4 of the city's stormwater outfall line will go. So this is the very large project to recreate and rebuild and relocate the entire stormwater line that serves the waterfront and a third of downtown Hood River. So phase 4, which I'm surprised, but they think may be carried out in 2022, will install, John, help me out here. Is it a 48-inch line that goes out there?
That's correct, Michael. And 36-inch stub out of that line up, pointing to the west for us to connect to.
So there's more work to do on this. We, John and Greg had a walkthrough with an engineer that's working for the city. But I wanted to point this out because not only is this will be located on port property and will require an easement, but that line, or at least the manhole that's upstream and located in the Portway Avenue area, will need to anticipate. It will not only need to connect to the existing manholes, or sorry, catch basins on Portway Avenue, and Portway, as you head west, is port property. But it will also need to anticipate the stormwater needs of in the future for the maritime property when it's redeveloped. And so this is frankly a bit of an unexpected project. I don't think it'll impact our current budget year, but certainly will next, where the port on it will have to engineer, design, pay for, and build a connection from, I wish I had a pointer here, but just about where the intersection is of that strip of property with Portway Avenue. So right about there, in Portway Avenue, right? So there'll be a manhole there. The current conceptual plan has a 36-inch connection there that then we will have to build a stormwater line running westerly in Portway Avenue. So mostly this is just a heads up. Like I say, I don't think it'll have an impact on our current fiscal year budget, but it is something that we will need to retain an engineer and start first conceptual design, so we're providing the right recommendations or requests to the city as they design their main line. But then we'll also need to anticipate the plans and specs and a contracting process to construct a storm line ourselves. Likely to happen in the fiscal 23 fiscal year. So any questions, I'm glad to answer. I just wanted to make sure the commission was aware of that project that's coming. It's frankly really good news. The schedule for that outfall will be driven by the permit process primarily, because putting a new outfall into the Columbia is a big deal from the permit agency standpoint. A couple more things, just to know that we have construction going on in the front office area. So some staff is temporarily relocated into the east wing. There's a lot of hammering and nailing and drilling going on. And so it can be somewhat disruptive, certainly disruptive to people up front, but it's an important improvement to our port area for safety and also to cut down the noise. I wanted to point out, is Commissioner Strike on the call?
He's not able to make it tonight.
Not at all. Okay. So the next airport advisory committee is on the 19th. It's in my report, but there's two column policy expenditure matters that have come up with the Port Commission. They came up at the work session. And on the 19th, we'll have our initial discussion with the AEC. The first issue is that of ground leasing. Ground leasing the airport property. There's different opinions and pros and cons about that. And then the second is that aviation tracking technology that we talked about at the work session. So Greg has put together a couple of sort of issue papers to generate the discussion. We'll have an initial meeting with the AAC. I assume and expect that we'll have another one, likely in September. And I would hope that Commissioners Deering and Strike will look to them for their input, as the AAC will, to develop some sort of recommendation on these two matters and ultimately bring them back to the Commission likely in October. So that will play out as we get into the fall. And then two final things. We do have an executed FBO agreement, and I did see today the report that they will be generated on a monthly basis and will be likely contained in my report and in the packet each month, so the Commission review. That's to make sure the Commission knows that we're getting information from our FBO. They're providing the information that's required in the FBO agreement, and it's an opportunity to ask questions. But I think the larger point there for me is that I think it's important for the FBO personnel to come to a Commission meeting and spend some time with the Commission. They can talk about their business plan. They can talk about the challenges and opportunities there. They can provide more information and directly to the Commission. So I think over the years we've lost that relationship, or the Commission has lost that relationship with the FBO. They provide a service up there, and sometimes it's a very, very important service in terms of NOTAMs, in terms of making sure that they're surveilling the runway and the taxiway and letting us know when there's a problem. And certainly when and it has happened, an aircraft goes down, they're oftentimes first on scene and notification protocols with the FAA and others. So point being, long-winded way of point being, I think it's important that they come and you can ask them questions about their operations, and you can get to know them better and they can get to know you better. Last thing I'll just say is that thanks to John and his crew, even with the challenge we had yesterday with the COVID testing and the lack of personnel, John and his crew were able to get a bridge lift in for a downbound Mariner. So John checked me, there was one on Friday and then the upbound and downbound on yesterday.
That's correct.
Well, luckily it wasn't a large vessel, right? Okay, that's my report. If there are any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
I had one question back to the COVID thing. So I understand from John, he was asymptomatic. So is the port doing testing, or how did the person decide to get tested?
John, can you answer that?
I sure can. What we do is we approach it from the point of view that you go to your primary care physician and you get the answer right from your primary care physician. We also offer other opportunities to go get tested in other places. So we give it to the employee and they go straight to their primary care physician and get set up for a test that worked very well for all of us. So that way people still feel like they're in control of it. It doesn't feel like a mandate on our part.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the original person, if they're asymptomatic, is the port requiring testing, or why did that person get tested?
I misunderstood you, Christy. He was going in for a procedure. So he had a procedure COVID test that caught it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, good. And our boat dragged in another downed vessel just the other day. So trying to help too.
So John, this is Mike. So this individual was whatever. It wasn't showing any outward signs of a disease, and they caught it on a pre-qual going into surgery.
That's correct.
Okay. So is anybody else showing any kind of signs at all? Should we?
Nope.
We shouldn't be-
At this point, everybody's been tested. We're
Okay.
only waiting for one person's test back, and we all fell within the incubation period really well. So the tests were very
Okay.
accurate.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you did test your team.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Everybody on the team has been tested,
that's what I was after. Thank you.
including our summer help.
How about Michael? He's looking a little peaked right now.
That's-
Thank you.
I'll go get tested.
All right, we have a couple of committee reports, I believe, this evening. Commissioner Fox, anything on the bridge replacement by state working group?
Yeah, we, there's actually a little presentation. I don't know, Geneva, if you can pop it up. We'll go through it very, very quickly. We had you know, others that attended the meeting, if you want to, please jump in, but I'll give you the highlights of it. We presented this presentation to the working group, and I had previously gone around to each of the members individually, shared this with them, and then we had kind of a round robin discussion on it. And the proposal here is to re-energize the bi-state working group. And if you go to the next slide. What we wanted to do is maybe strengthen through the MOU their set of responsibilities in helping us get a new bridge put in place. So to do that, we felt that the bi-state working group has to be knowledgeable of what's going on with their existing bridge. And so what we talked about is making sure that at the bi-state working group, we do get a section into that meeting that talks about here's the current status of the current bridge, some of the issues that we're dealing with at that time. Go to the next slide. So we came up with some lofty goals, if you will. And some people would say, what are you smoking? But we decided to put them down anyway. So a vision is that by the end of December of 2025, we've obtained all of the funding that we need from the states and the federal government and wherever else we need. We've got a bridge replacement management contract in place and it's fully functional. We've awarded a design contract and the design for the new bridge is done. Construction contract had been awarded and they're mobilized and they're actually in the water building cofferdams or whatever else that they need to do. And then lastly, the current bridge decommissioning plan has been developed and approved. So we're ready to put that into play once we get the new bridge up and running. Next part. So the role of the bi-state working group, they're a very strong advocate of the bridge replacement and it's in total agreement with the MOU. We understand the criticality of the current bridge. We understand the bi-state working group thoughts and opinions are really important. They're not just a check in the box organization. So until such time we can get legislation in place to stand up the new bridge or bridge authority, we see the bi-state working group acting on behalf of the two states in that regard. So if this is going to work, we need to make sure that we are listening to what they say. So multifaceted approach. I'm not going to go through this one. You can read it at your leisure. Go to the next one. So this replacement bridge management contract, the concept there is that we need a set of people working as a team to help us manage the new bridge. They would be responsible for drafting contractual language, running a bid process to award a contract for both engineering as well as construction, helping evaluate change orders, and there's going to be lots of them. And then the normal things that you need to do is managing of a project of this size. Go to the next page. So what this thing would look like would be a small group of people. We need a project manager that's very qualified and very experienced in heavy project design and construction of bridges. We need an engineering technical rep on the team, and they would be responsible for helping writing the engineering contract, going through the technical evaluation of the engineering team, and then overseeing the engineering technical design of the bridge. We need somebody with contracting experience to help us write these contracts. These are not small contracts. These will be very major. There will be a lot of people looking at them. There will be a lot of people bidding on them. So if we're not very careful, we're going to end up in court, which we certainly don't want to do. So we need some strong contracting support. Of course, scheduling, communications. I think we need a dedicated person for the bridge. That's not taking anything away from Genevieve. She's done a remarkable job, but we need somebody that can spend 130% of their time on this thing. And that person would be involved in developing data sheets, a whole legislative attack plan, support plan. Person will be very busy. Estimating and trending. I'm going to report to you now, or in the near term here, what happened with the estimate review that WSP did, and what I think we got to go to next. Construction individual later, but as the design progresses, we need somebody that's got construction experience to back check the design to make sure it's constructible. I've found that if you do that, you can actually save a lot of money as you design that into the program. Later on, some kind of a safety rep, and then some support staff. I'm thinking one now, one later. There's one element that I did not include in here, thinking about it. We do need is going to be some regulatory support. We're still going to have some permits and so on to be pushing through. We need somebody that's going to help us keep track of that. Next page. What would it likely cost? So I did an estimate that includes salaries, payroll ads, a little bit of fee. It would include office space, computers, those kinds of things, supplies, escalation. And I came up with these values. These are on a fiscal year basis. And I'm assuming that we can get this in place, MOBIT by November 1. You actually house them come December. I'm looking at about $1 million to $1.4 million, growing in the later years to $1.6 million or $7 million based on escalation. Now, this is my educated guess on what it's going to cost. We certainly want to go out for competitive bids on this. So hopefully we can beat these prices. Go ahead. Next slide. So we suggested that the bi-state working group adjust this presentation as needed. There was no adjustments identified. We did get the BSWG endorsement during the meeting, and it was unanimous to proceed forward in this manner. Tonight I'm looking at for the Port Commission to endorse this. And then we need to push on and develop an RFQ package for the management contract. And I'd like to get that out back for review of the bi-state working group in a short period of time, 3 to 4 weeks or less. And then we bring it to you folks later on. In that, we need to clearly define the scope of work, define the job descriptions for each of these proposed staff, define the evaluation and scoring approach that we're going to use in the bid selection. And I'm thinking in this particular kind of contract, it's very important that we have highly qualified people but people that can work well together and work well with us. So it probably means that we're going to want to do oral reviews of the proposal, sitting down with the proposed team and actually talking to them and testing them out. We need to define the target bidders, seek bids, evaluate and award, and mobilize it by November 1. And then we talked about where would we put these people, and politically, I think we need to consider, and the Bi-State Working Group agreed with it on both sides of the river, to house this place maybe either in Bingen or White Salmon. It would show the Washington State people that, yeah, they do count, and we are listening to them in getting this new bridge built. This organization also supports drafting language in the infrastructure bill describing needing funding, and then continue to work with the states and the feds to attract needed funding. Next step. Or is that it? Okay, so approve a request. Prepare the RFQ for a bridge replacement management contract. Use the existing state funds to pay for the first several years of this. And we're talking about 5 million. That'll get us through 3 years anyway. Develop an RFQ based on a 4-year contract with a 3 one-year option. So we sign up for 4 years, but we can add to that in 3 one-year increments. Look for office space to house the staff, and consider White Salmon Bingen for like a December 1 opening. Approve the milestones on slide 3 as our working milestones. Again, the Bi-State Working Group, we talked about it at some length, and they're ready to give it a try. I think the comment, and Christy, jump in, the comment from Kate McBride, the mayor of Hood River, was really kind of neat. She says, wow, this really makes it real. So we're not talking about it anymore. We're actually going to do it. That's her takeaway from this, and she was all for it. So any discussion that you have, you'd like?
Well, I'm happy to comment first because I was in the meeting. It was very long, but it was very good. The discussion from all of the constituents involved, all the elected officials involved, were very good. Worked through a lot of stuff, and I think that the biggest takeaway that I got from that was that they want to make sure that while they're in this infancy setting, that their voice really matters to the port and the port commissioners. And we all understand that as it stands now, everything has to run through the Port of Hood River, but they are all very hopeful that the Port of Hood River is going to really listen to them. And it's not, I mean, a 3.5 hour, it was 3.5 hours, 3.5 hour discussion of all of this stuff happened. And so they're all taking it very seriously, and it's super exciting to hear it. Good work.
So it sounds to me like the recommendation from this committee is that we move forward with this.
Yes, please.
I don't want to talk about it tonight, but there's going to be a lot of questions, and I support this. I don't want to talk about it tonight, but there's going to be a lot of questions on funding, which I'm assuming is going to come from states. But if there's not, do we have the legislative authority to have this group get funded? All questions that I think are going to have to get answered as we move forward with this. But I'll support moving forward with it. Commissioner Gehring, did you have any comments on
it? No, I loved it. The draft is amazing. Thank you, Commissioner Fox, for taking on this project. It's really cool to see the forward momentum and how organized your presentation was.
Thank you.
So it sounds like we're in agreement there. I believe, I'm having a hard time seeing all this on my phone, but I believe that is an action item this evening, is progressing with that. So I think we'll be able to eliminate any discussion there, but we'll take care of it in action items, because it sounds like everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
Commissioner Garing, did you have anything for the Airport Advisory Committee?
Well, a couple of things Michael already mentioned. We discussed the commissioner work session with the AAC. Tech Aero was excited that the FBO contract was extended. They didn't know about the through the fence agreement. And we're happy to know that it was an easy fix to keep the through the fence agreement and not have to do $1 million fence. We talked about, there was a lot of discussion about possible ground leases for development of the airport. And they're going to bring that up in their August meeting and give a recommendation to the board. WAM talked about they wanted to have some better signage to increase traffic to the museum. There's a fly-in happening September 10th through 12th. And they talked about the Hood River Soaring Club. It's up and running with a lot of good participation. We had a citizen there that was concerned about the club and the noise. And she was assured that there's a brand new prop on the tow plane that is decreasing the noise. I think that's about it. Did I lose you?
Got it. Thank you. Any questions from anyone? All right. Nice work. Michael, I am curious if, and I'm just going to backtrack for a moment. Does staff have any comments that we need to know about right now on the last item on that first one? Obviously, there's going to be plenty of commentary and comments and information we'll be looking for the next little bit of time here, but is there anything we need to know about right now?
Well, I was assuming we'd get to that under action items, but
happy to. Yeah, happy to. Then let's just move on to those. And the first one is an amendment for load testing, I think.
So I'm assuming Mark Libby is on the call at this point. Is Mark on?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, well, thanks, Mark. I wasn't sure. You heard from Mark, our bridge engineer, Mark Libby, at the last meeting about the approach to try to further characterize what our challenges are related to the weight limit and the recommendation to provide some live load testing to with ODOT's approval to make sure that, or see if many of those so-called efficient places can go away. So this is an opportunity to just hear from Mark, summarize, Mark, if you would, what the scope of work is and this proposal, maybe a little bit of detail about the live load testing. And then the intent here, Commission, is that you review this, and we're seeking your approval of this amendment. And this would initiate the next major phase of the work related to the weight limit. So I'll turn that over to Mark.
Yeah, so the biggest part of the amendment is the load testing proposal from BDI. And we've shared that with ODOT. They didn't have any significant comments, but we want to make sure that we are processing things through them to make sure they're in alignment with accepting the results or outcome of the process. So as submitted, we have all of the areas that were discussed at the last meeting considered. It was more for efficiency of time. We are still looking at those Washington approach bans with the intent of eliminating the need to do the testing there. And that was about $38,000 out of the $190,000 out of their proposal. And so, but we think we can do away with that. ODOT reiterated, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, but when they submitted, sent the port the letter about the load restriction, it only applied currently to the legal loads and not these emergency vehicle trucks. They're going to be sending you another letter this fall about further restrictions for these EV trucks. So we've already taken that into account and have evaluated the effect of those. And the EV3 is a very heavy, short truck, so it does a lot of damage to the bridge from a load rating standpoint, damage. And so we're suggesting several applications that we just allow that truck to be posted for a lesser load because we don't think it represents your current users much. And not worth bringing it up to speed for that truck. So we're still doing some additional evaluation of the new information we got related to the widening at the Washington end. And some of that includes span 19 truss, which is the last truss before the concrete spans. When the bridge was widened, they added some high tension rods to the bottom cord. And we believe that makes most of the issues for that truss go away. And we're doing a little bit of checking to try to verify that assumption. But otherwise, the bulk of it is some additional funding on our part for some additional analysis, coordination and oversight with BDI, coordinating with ODOT and the port for them to implement their testing program. And they're currently looking at October as a time frame when they could do the field work. So we did push out the end date from end of the year to end of January to give a little bit extra time for final reports. So I think we probably have draft reports by the end of the year, but review and commenting, it was a little bit tight, especially with holidays and whatnot. So they will provide load rating analysis of the approach spans, and I think on the floor beams on the trusses. We'll have to do some additional analysis to take their load assessment on the trusses to evaluate the gusset plates. So we're already kind of looking at their gusset plate analysis that was done by ODOT or by DEA. And we'll do some additional looking and make sure we're set up. So once we get that information, we can easily run those numbers and validate the results. So again, the intent is making the majority of the deficiencies go away from the load testing. With regards to the trusses, we believe that's highly likely. The Oregon approach spans, just not as confident there. We have to determine that the bridge is functioning as composite between the girders and the deck. And so that's a big aspect of those spans. So there could still be some need to strengthen on those spans. And on the Washington ones, the reason there, we think we can just allow the EV3 truck to be over and just mitigate the other ones by and just not have to do any repairs. Any questions? That's a pretty quick run through, but that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, so question I've got for you is that you're pretty confident that the data set that you're collecting and the analysis that you're going to perform will be not necessarily agreed to by ODOT, but conform to the information they need to be able to make a judgment, yes or no?
Yes, we will be providing them the information, the justification for not reducing the loads or to what level we can maintain the loads.
So they agree with your methodology. It's just now it's the results.
Yeah, there's probably some additional coordination with them. We've presented them with the proposal, what plan to do. It didn't have any real comments there. I think they'll want, and I also told them, it's like, before we get into more detailed where exactly sensors are being placed and analysis, we need to actually let the firm be under contract so they can get paid for doing that part of the work. But we would have additional coordination with ODOT along the way to make sure that's we don't want to have a risk factor there of doing this work and then them saying, well, no, we didn't like that approach.
Right.
But that's
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. And so we'll be coordinating. So far, mainly their response was, well, just be sure you do it according to the MBE, which is the Manual for Bridge Evaluation.
Yeah, but that bridge manual is this thick. You want to narrow them down to.
Yeah, and so, well, and just the section there on, so like for field testing and evaluation.
Right.
So, and just so you guys know, we tried to work with this firm on a couple of projects here locally that haven't worked out. As a company, we've worked with them on quite a bit. And I've got several people in my office who have worked with them when they were in graduate school or other things. Every person that I've talked to or reached out to with questions about it, they say, oh, you're using them? That's the right choice. You're in good hands. And so it's somewhat comforting and doing something like this to know they come highly recommended. And the other aspects of where we've worked with them across the company is very positive responses.
I get that and I appreciate it. Have you looked at anybody else?
We did not solicit another proposal.
And what's the value of this thing, of this potential contract?
Their part of it was 193,000 and some change overall. As I mentioned, the 38,000 for the Washington approach, we hope to be able to eliminate. We just didn't want to hold up getting this in place to be able to move forward and set schedules with getting to that determination. So talk that over with Michael and say, let's put the whole thing in there. It's on time and materials basis, and talk back with that firm to let them know that's the way our contract is set up. And we want it in these modules because we're going to try to eliminate some of this. And like this section, this Washington section in particular, I have my eye on to make sure, but we're still doing a little bit of checking there because I want to make sure we're in good shape to go back to ODOT and say we're okay for these trucks. This one, yeah, we may have to add a sign to restrict the load of the EV3 truck, which shouldn't affect your users.
Got it. Hey, Michael, this is a question for you or Fred. Is there any violation of what we're doing here with sole source contracting at this magnitude? Are we breaking any rules?
No, the original or the base contract with HDR went through the normal required contracting procedures. So
Yeah, but this is not NCR. This is a subcontractor to them.
Well, I would defer to Jerry on that point then. I don't think so, but it is a sub-consultant to our primary.
I need to look at that. There are particular rules for obtaining requests for proposals from providers of engineering services in the code, and we need to take a look at where we're at on that.
I don't want to slow things down, but we got to make sure that we're legal here in non-competitive space. Thank you.
So perhaps to make sure the commission is comfortable, we should defer this item until the next meeting and take the time to confirm that we're in conformance with state contracting law.
I think that'd be a smart idea. Yeah, but if it can wait 2 weeks, I think it's a smart idea.
Okay. Mark, I guess if there's no other questions, thanks for spending part of the evening with us.
You bet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're back to the replacement bridge management contractor. Kevin, are you gonna take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last several weeks, Mike and I have worked together on this document, and we have had versions of this document that I've obtained from Multnomah County and from the Rose Quarter project from ODOT. So I think those are good samples that we can use to work from. The one thing I would really just caution the commission on is that second paragraph in my report. In talking to Sam, who's the local programs manager at the Region 1, he did note that these templates from the Christmas tree bill into session Christmas tree bill really won't be out to grant recipients until mid-October. So that's not to say that we can't be developing the RFP, and I anticipate that we will be developing the RFP, Mike and I and others, over the coming weeks, but it will need to be reviewed, not just by ODOT, but by federal highways, since the funding would be coming from those entities. So once we have the contract developed in the RFP process, we can anticipate that there will be some time needed by the DOTs and federal highways to review the document to make sure it's compliant with their rules and public contracting processes. But I anticipate that working with Commissioner Fox, that we should be able to get the RFP document itself turned around as quick as possible. And of course, we will be taking that back to the bi-state working group to endorse any processes or RFP processes before bringing it to the Port Commission. So certainly recommend the two proposed actions in the staff report, but I would just caution on some of these aggressive timelines that there may be entities out of our control that I'll certainly be working with behind the scenes to see if they can make us process these things as quickly as possible.
Let me jump in. The second paragraph talks about funding for this. I'm of the opinion that we've been collecting tolls for many, many, many years. And I could find reference back to 1977 as a toll increase was put into place. There was an agreement that those tolls would be used for bridge replacement and bridge maintenance. And I'm pretty sure that our port can find $5 million to fund this, and we don't have to wait for funding just because we got this other thing floating around. I think we ought to put a challenge up to Michael to go find the money and let's go. It's $5 million bucks.
Are these other entities willing to kick in some money as well?
Well, if you take a look so far, Washington has done, it sounds like to me, and Kevin, you got to jump in. Washington is doing more than Oregon. And Christie, jump in as well. What we're talking about here is just some seed money to get this thing going.
Well, at this point, at least over the last 2 years, 3 years, Washington and Oregon will both have put up 5 million along with the 5 million from the build grant. The port did agree to put up 1.25 million as match to the build money. I would say that before the port's build contribution could be counted as indeed that 20% portion to match the build, it needs to be reviewed, and the contracts need to be reviewed by Federal Highways. So we just want to make sure that the state and federal agencies that are requiring the port's match agreed to the way that we procured these contracts in advance of letting those RFP processes out on the street. Now, the other option is if, I'd be surprised if there's, the other discussion about other funds outside of the bridge project, that's above my pay grade, but any contracting that we anticipate either getting reimbursed by the feds or the state, they will require a review of the procurement processes.
And I have no problem whatsoever reviewing it with whoever, but I think I would put a challenge back onto Kevin and Michael is that we need to move forward on this and proactively work on supporting, making sure there's funds available when we pull the trigger on this. That's what I'm asking for.
And it sounds like that will be part of the work they need to do if we decide to move forward with this tonight. That's all going to be part of the work they're going to do.
So just a heads up, we're, if we want to move forward and we're going to be spending another $1 million or $2 million in the current budget, we will have to reconvene the budget committee for a supplemental budget. Just a heads up. That's not undoable. It's doable, but if we're going to go that route, we have to do it legally.
Good point. Good point. Well, it sounds to me like there's consensus that we want to move forward at looking into this. So if there's no more discussion, someone can certainly make a motion to do so.
Make a recommendation that we move forward with the recommended items that are shown on this particular document, and it deals with authorizing staff to develop a procurement process for the selection of the replacement bridge management contractor, and authorize staff to draft an update of the bridge replacement strategy, strategic principles document based on the bi-state working group recommendation.
I can second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, and we're gonna need to go back to saying our names, so I'm gonna take votes, please.
Heather Gehring, aye.
Chapman, aye.
Fox, aye.
Shepherd's and I as well. That motion will pass.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Move to commission call. Anything that we haven't discussed or anything any commissioner would like to mention, Commissioner Fox?
I'm sorry, please say that again.
Just moving to commission call. If there's anything you'd like to note or mention that we haven't covered tonight, or just anything you want to say.
No, one minor one on meeting notes. It would be very helpful to me if in the meeting notes, we would clearly identify action items. So if tonight we've got a series of action items coming out of it, Geneva, when you write up the notes, if you would please clearly state that this is an action item. It just helps me make sure that we've checked all of them off.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapman?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Gehring?
Nothing to add.
And neither do I. That is the end of our regular session agenda. So what I will do at this time is adjourn I'll recess the regular session and open executive session under ORS 192.6602E, real estate negotiations.